Good morning and welcome to the August 26th Utility Committee meeting. I'd like to start by acknowledging that we are gathered today on the traditional land of Treaty 6 territory. And we thank the diverse Indigenous peoples whose ancestors' footsteps have marked this territory for centuries, including the Cree, the Dene, the Saulteaux, the Nakota Sioux, and Blackfoot peoples. We also acknowledge this as the Métis homeland and the home of the largest concentration of Inuit south of the 60th parallel. This has long been a welcoming place of people who come from around the world to share Edmonton as a home. Together we call upon all of our collective honor, traditions, and spirits to work in building a great city for today and for future generations. We'll start with a roll call, first of all, of committee members. Councillor Paquette. Okay, presume he'll join us in a moment. Councillor Jans.
Good morning.
Good morning. Councillor Salvador.
Good morning.
Good morning. Councillor Stevenson. And Councillor Tang.
Good morning.
Good morning. What do we need for quorum, Madam Clerk, if we're missing two?
We need 4.
Okay. So we have 4.
I do see Councillor Paquette on the Google Meet, so can we just maybe check again to see if he can hear us? Oh, he just left, so maybe
he's having some tech trouble. Okay. Well, we have 4, so we'll continue on. We'll presume that our comrades will join in a moment. I think we're joined by some other councillors as well. Councillor Knack, good morning. Now I'm beginning to wonder if we've got a problem. Maybe we'll just stop for a second.
yeah, just give us a moment. Counselor, this might take more than a couple minutes. Can we just recess while we sort it out, please?
Sure, yeah. So we'll, 10 minutes, Madam Clerk-ish?
I think 5 to 10.
Okay, we'll recess for 10 minutes then.
Counselor Paquette, can I just test to see if you can hear us now?
I can hear you.
Excellent. Counselor Wright, can I test that you can also hear us?
Yes, I can. Thank you.
Thank you. And Counselor Rice?
Yes, I can. Thank you.
And Counselor Knack?
Yes, good morning. Thank you.
Thank you. We are back on.
Okay, so we're back. I'll start again with a roll call. Councillor Paquette.
Good morning.
Hallelujah. Good morning. Nice to see you. Councillor Jans is here. Councillor Salvador is here. Councillor Stevenson. Councillor Tang. Other councillors joining us. Councillor Knack.
Good morning.
Good morning. Councillor Rutherford.
Good morning.
Good morning. Councillor Rice.
Good morning.
Good morning. Councillor Wright.
Good morning.
Good morning. Councillor Principe.
Good morning.
And that's all I see on the roster. Hopefully I haven't missed anybody. We'll take a motion for adoption of the agenda.
I'll move the adoption of the agenda with the following recommendation: that the August 26, 2022 Utility Committee meeting agenda be adopted with the following change. Addition 7.4, contract update, private pursuant to Section 16, 25, and 27 of the Freedom of Information and Protection of Privacy Act.
Thank you. Please vote.
Yes.
Thank you, Councillor Salvador. We have all the votes.
Please display the vote. That is carried. Approval of the minutes.
I'll move the approval of the minutes from the May 20th, 2022 Utility Committee meeting.
Thank you. Seeing no changes, errors, omissions, please vote.
Yes.
Thank you, Councillor Salvador. We have all the votes.
Please display the vote. And that is carried. Protocol items, I'm not aware of any. Selection of items for debate. I will select 9.1. Any other selections? I will also select item 7.1 just while we're waiting for anybody to might click on. We have a presentation from the folks at EPCOR, so it'll be good to hear that. And I will select item 7.3 because I had an opportunity to chat very briefly with Mr. Beckett. I think he has a comment there. Any others?
I have a very quick question on 7.2.
Okay.
No, you know what, no. I do select.
Okay. Then I will take a motion to vote on reports not selected for debate. Oh. So we're okay? Okay. Then I will move approval of the recommendations in the reports not selected for debate. Please vote.
We have all the votes.
Please display the vote. That is carried. Madam Clerk, can you please summarize what we have approved so far?
Thank you. The August 26 Utility Committee has approved the following public reports: 7.2 Waste Services Supplemental Capital Budget Adjustment for Council approval, and 7.4 High Solids Anaerobic Digestion Facility HSADF for Council approval.
Great, thank you. Requests to speak, we have none. Request for time specific on the agenda. What I'm going to suggest is we do item 7.1 and then at completion of that item, bring forward item 9.1 and deal with those two items first, and then we'll deal with the balance after that. So we'll just have a motion to bring forward at the appropriate time, which takes us to item 7.1, EPCOR Water Services.
Councillor Cartmel, just councillor inquiries on the before the public
Apologies.
items.
Are there any councillor inquiries this morning? No? Okay. Thank you, Madam Clerk. That takes us to item 7.1. Good morning.
Good morning, councillors. My name is Daryl Manning. I'm Director of Regulatory for EPCOR Water Services, and I'm joined this morning by Susan Ansell, who's the Director of One Water Planning, and Sean Bradford, who is the Senior Vice President of Water Canada. We're here to present the 2021 PBR Progress Report. We do have a presentation, but if the committee prefers, we can go straight to questions.
I'm going to suggest we have the presentation, actually. Yeah, please go ahead.
Okay. Next slide, please. So this is the 2021 PBR Progress Report, which is the last year of the prior PBR term. The Progress Report is a standard annual report to provide City Council an update on the financial and operational performance of water services, wastewater treatment, as well as the drainage utilities. All results are compared against the original PBR application, except for the case of drainage, where there really was no PBR application because of when it was transferred to EPCOR. So as a proxy, we used the 2018 EPCOR operational budget, escalated at inflation, as the basis of comparison. And then we used the original capital plan from prior to the transfer as our basis of comparison. And that's the one that was in the Grant Thornton independent review of the transfer. So that's our basis of comparison. Just at the outset, I'd like to recognize that the report has grown quite significantly over the past few years. and particularly with the introduction of the operating plan update as well as the SERP and the core updates. And those are a direct result of the previous utility committee's requests, but we certainly welcome any suggestions to pare the report back or adjust the content or format to meet your particular needs. Next slide, please. We always start these reports by looking at customers and consumptions. In 2021, customer counts were 0.4% higher than forecast, and that's due primarily to growth in the residential customer class. 2021 total consumption was characterized by two major things. One is a very hot and dry summer, which saw quite high consumption over the summer, and then a very significant shift from the commercial class to the residential class, and that's due to public health restrictions. And as you can see from the chart, the residential class consumption was up almost 11% over our original forecast, but commercial was down 22%. So overall consumption was 1.5% less than our original forecast, but that was significantly lower than the 5.3 reduction we saw in the prior year. Next slide, please. We now turn and look at each of the utilities individually in terms of operating performance and capital performance. So starting with in-city water, and I'll just make a note, we call this in-city water, but you'll note in the report that some charts are the total water treatment facility and others are in-city water. This distinction there is that we have one system that provides water to both in-city customers as well as the regional customers. And so that would be the 7 commissions and municipalities surrounding the city. And so capital, for example, is presented on a total basis, operating costs. We go through a cost of service model to break out the individual costs for just in-city water, and that's where the in-city rates are determined from. And just to give you an appreciation of the size of the regional water, they're 20% of our volume. So it's a pretty significant amount that we send outside the city. In 2021, in-city revenues were $10.5 million less than forecast. And there's 2 or 3 major drivers for that. The largest is the inflationary adjustments. As you probably know, rates are increased each year by inflation. In the last few years, the salary component of inflation was very low because of COVID. And so we ultimately had a very low adjustment, which impacted our revenue. And then, of course, lower consumption. And within the rates, of course, is non-routine adjustments, both positive and negative. Over the 2017 to 21 period, overall revenue was $45 million below forecast, and exactly the same reasons. It's consumption, it's the inflationary adjustments. In-city operating expenses were almost $17 million less than forecast. That was driven by lower power prices, lower chemical usage related to favorable water conditions, as well as a number of process improvements and efficiencies that we put into the system over the year. So that really allowed us to offset the reduction in revenue. The end result of that is that in-city water earned a return of 11.46%, return on equity, which is 1.28% below the target return of 10.175. But over the course of the entire PBR term, we earned 10.12, which is slightly less than the 1.175, 1.2. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. Here. Oh, there we go. Thank you. So this looks at water treatment capital. We typically look at the capital over the entire term of the PBR as opposed to an individual year, because there's often year-over-year changes to address unforeseen repairs or rehabilitation requirements, regulatory or operational requirements, or customer demands. So in 2017 to 2021, capital expenditures were $50.8 million above our original forecast that was done in the 17 to 21 PBR. The major drivers of that is the Kiskakau-Pism Solar Farm, which was 19.4, but this isn't a variance. The solar farm was not included as a capital project in the original PBR application. At the time we put in the application, we were unsure of whether we would do green offsets or a capital project, and so we clearly defined that. And there was a special rate adjustment, so it was in the revenue side of the equation, not the capital, so the 19.4 is a net addition. Additional changes would be the network private development transmission mains were almost 12 million above forecast. These are transmissions mains to service new developments that are really decided by the developers, that are funded through the system of the ratepayers, but ultimately they decide, so it's really beyond our control. We had $9 million of obsolete valve replacement that we weren't aware of. And then structural rehab at the E.L. Smith was an additional $8.1 million. And offsetting that was the deferral of our deep bed filter project. And these are related. We started the deep bed filter project, got into the system, and really found that the concrete underneath needed repair. So that's why we did the structural rehab and not the actual project itself. And then there was an additional $13.5 million savings on the meter changeout program, which resulted from longer life of the batteries than was originally expected. Moving to the next slide, please. Turning now to wastewater. Very similar, revenues were 5.5 million less than forecast. 4 million of that's lower inflation, a little bit of consumption in there, as well as a negative non-routine adjustment. When drainage was transferred over, we recognized that corporate costs would be spread out over a larger base, which allowed us to reduce corporate costs that were in the application, and so that was refunded as a negative non-routine adjustment to water and wastewater. Over the 17 to 21 term, we were 21.8 or almost $22 million below revenue for the exact same reasons. Operating costs were almost $4 million below forecast. That's primarily attributable to shifting staff from internal operations to capital projects, and of course there's a benefit of doing that, and then a lower corporate cost that I mentioned. Over the entire term, we're $27.7 million below. And the net result of all of that is that wastewater earned 14.25% ROE in 2020, and that's attributable to the higher income as well as the lower rate base, because of course ROE is a combination of those two factors. So had the rate base been at forecast levels, the return would have been just above 13%. So under the PBR structure, any permanent cost savings resulting from the efficiencies that allowed us to over-earn in the current term are now reflected in the rates to customers. And so that was part of the PBR process that was approved about a year and a half ago. On the capital side, we're effectively on budget for capital, 1.1% less than our original PBR forecast, although there was some reprioritization of projects. The one unique thing about the Gold Bar plant is that you often don't know the extent of the repairs you need to do until you can drain the tanks and really see what's there. And so that's exactly what happened in terms of our sludge lines. We thought they needed minor repairs, and in fact, they needed far more significant repairs, and in some cases, replacement. So, oh, sorry. Next slide, please. Thank you, Susan. So that was $12.5 million, similar to the replacement of clarifier chains. When we drained the tanks, we recognized that they needed to replace. That was 5.3. And then there was an additional 10.3 to construct an above-ground pipe system, which is effectively moving the gas pipes out of the tunnels for safety reasons. Those were offset by the midpoint operations center was reduced by $15.6 million, and that was a result of stakeholder consultation and what they wanted to do within the footprint of the plant, and effectively to maintain our geography of the plant within the current confines, and so that's in place. And then $5.3 million for headworks, which is just a reduction in scope, and a deferral of the digester 4 upgrade, which we recognize was not required. Next slide, please. Turning now to drainage, and again, the basis of this was the 2018 budget, and so there is a lot of variations here. Revenues were $16.8 million greater than budget, and $11.8 million of that is attributable to the non-routine adjustments that we put in for SERP, CORE, and LRT relocates. We don't see the same inflationary changes in drainage because as part of the transfer, the rates were set at an average of 3% across storm and sanitary, and so there really wasn't that normal inflationary adjustments that would impact our revenue. Expenses were $9.2 million greater than budget, and that would be cost associated with SERP and CORE primarily, which again was part of the non-routine adjustment approved by council. And then there's a number of accounting adjustments as we moved from the city's accounting system to the EPCOR accounting system. Those increases were partially offset by lower biosolids processing costs, lower maintenance, monitoring, compliance costs, just a number of things across the whole system as we drove efficiencies. And so that resulted in drainage achieving an ROE of 5.52%. There really is no target on the ROE as part of the transition. It was set at 3% rate increase, and the ROE would be what tumbled out. So that's why that's there. Next slide, please. So there's quite a significant change in the overall approach to capital from what we saw in the original city plan. Again, that was in the Grant Thornton report. Probably the largest increase that resulted in being $55.4 million under original forecast was additional expenditure for drainage system rehabilitation. That was $119.2 million. And that, quite honestly, just speaks to the level of deterioration that we found in the system, a result of H2S gas and those types of things. And so there was a really high priority on addressing those, and so that's why we addressed that by funneling funds that way. $7 million for system expansion, $21 million for LRT relocates and CORE, and then the real estate consolidation project for 22. And so that was offset by $60 million in neighborhood renewals, 57 in environment quality enhancements, and then 136 in flood mitigation as we try to consolidate all the programs under the SERP initiative. And so we'll speak to that a little bit later. Next slide, please. Now turning to operational performance. As you may be aware, our operational performance is based on a number of metrics, probably 25 or 30 within each of the utilities. And those are consolidated into indexes that look at, say, water quality, operational process improvements, those types of things, or system reliability. And then we're assessed on achieving 100 points individually by the utility. And there's a financial penalty if we don't achieve 100 points. So all three utilities exceeded the 100-point threshold, but on an individual metric basis, water was under by 1. That's the post-service audit factor, where we achieved 72 versus our target of 74. Put a significant amount of work into customer service and training people and getting that back up, and so we're above that level currently. Wastewater treatment exceeded all performance standards. And then moving to drainage. Next slide, please. These targets have only been in place since 2020. We didn't put them in place as part of the initial transfer just because we needed time to establish the metric and establish the baseline and those types of things. And so while we achieved the 100-point target, we were under on 5 or 6 of the metrics. The green hectares we were under, and that was just getting the program up and running and timing changes. Emergency dig-up services restored. We achieved 90% versus 98%. And that was simply crew availability during COVID and the number of crews we could put on the street to address these things. Block sewers was 2.7 versus a standard of 2.1. And that was really driven by COVID as well. Although people say wipes are flushable, in fact, they are not. And so it led to a pretty significant increase in blockage in the sewer system that we had to address. Sewer renewal was also below that. Teams assigned to emergency work as opposed to renewing them during the COVID time. And then full property flood inspections, we achieved 669 versus 750. And you may note in the report that we're recommending that we change this metric for multi-residential properties. The original plan was to do an interior and exterior inspection to classify as a full inspection. We can certainly do that on the residential side, but we can't do that, we've now found out, in the majority of multi-residential properties because we can't get access to elevator shafts and those types of things. So we're recommending to the committee to change that metric to just do exterior inspections going forward. And then next slide, please. The last thing we always do is we provide an indication of the average bill for Edmonton ratepayers in comparison to the surrounding community and other cities. And we typically are in the middle, as we are again for 2021. And again, this is based on 15.1 cubic meters of water, which is the average residential customer. But the thing to note here is that costs are quite heavily dependent on water quality. And so Vancouver is always the lowest, but they also have the cleanest water that has the least treatment requirements, where our water quality tends to be quite variable and dirtier at the end of the day. And so we require more treatment, which of course leads to more costs. Next slide, please. On the wastewater bill side, wastewater bills are more difficult to compare because of variations in the nature and extent of wastewater treatment, the inclusion of property taxes, or these can be included in property taxes, you know, geographic climate factors, those types of things. But overall, we are in the middle of this, middle of the pack. And again, we tend to have higher flood mitigation programs and those types of things that a lot of other communities, and so that's where you see that. And on the commercial side, relatively same type of picture, generally middle of the pack. And with that, I will turn it over to Susan, who will walk through an overview of our operational initiatives.
Perfect, thank you. Next slide, please. Good morning, councillors. So I'm going to just go through a few slides, highlight some of the projects, not from a financial perspective, but from what we achieved in terms of major initiatives. So starting off with our common initiatives, you know, one of the big aspects is EPCOR's environmental social governance strategy was out there and published, and quite a number of our climate change initiatives, in particular related to flood mitigation, are reflected in that report and are moving forward for both the treatment plants as well as the overall community. Also, water drainage synergies has been a big focus. You know, the first few years of the transition was getting everybody over and everything stabilized in terms of what we need to do. Now we're really focusing on how we bring those groups together. And so right now we have 17 specific initiatives underway where we're looking at ways to merge the groups together. We're relocating our water distribution team and our drainage operations and drainage construction teams to one common facility, consolidating from 9 locations across the city, and we'll be moving in there next year, early next year. And so that's changes to stores, fleet management, looking at how we look at subdivisions, how we look at all those different pieces. So rather than having a water and a drainage review, it's one common review. And so all of that work is underway right now. We've also launched what we're calling a Utility of the Future initiative, and so been looking at benchmarking of leading utilities around the world, and in particular in the UK, where they've done some really innovative approaches to looking at the utility. And right now we have 2 areas we're focusing on. One is situational awareness, so understanding in real time what is happening in your system, responding quicker, not waiting for your customer to call and let you know that something's happening. How can you get moving much faster in that? And so that's an impact on sensors and monitoring throughout the system. The other one is on procurement partnerships and alliance approaches. And so looking at different approaches, not just the traditional, you know, do your RFP out, get your bids, pick your lowest bid. Can you do stuff around partnerships and shared goals, shared objectives? Also looking at TODEX, not just your capital efficiency, but are you actually picking capital projects that are going to reduce your operating costs down there? And so very exciting work coming out of those initiatives. We're continuing to optimize our project coordination with City of Edmonton roadways, building great neighborhoods, LRT, Yellowhead Trail, and Terwilliger. Lots of good work happening with there, and seeing really good support of our green infrastructure initiatives for our SERP strategy through that as well, and we've been able to acquire quite a number of green hectares through those initiatives, so that's been very positive. On the developer coordination and enhancement, I know we spent a lot of time last committee meeting talking about that, so, but just wanted to highlight that the modernization of the standards is continuing and getting very positive response. We're also in the process of developing a portal for the infill, or for developers to come in and see their status of their project from a water, power, and electricity as a one-stop shop. Again, apply initially, whereas historically they would have had to do each one individually, and so that project is underway right now. Next slide, please. So highlighting some of the projects specific to water and wastewater, the construction of the Kisaka-Pisum Solar Farm is in commissioning stage. We should be very close to having that fully functional. We've also integrated our watershed management strategy. So previously we had an upstream watershed management strategy for the water treatment plants and a downstream one for the drainage utility. It's now one strategy, and the teams are working together, and we've got initiatives that tie together, and that's of particular import for the creeks that feed into the North Saskatchewan and working together. We've updated our residual strategy using sustainable return on investment approaches and worked with the regulator as part of that. Our lead mitigation projects are underway. We've got the orthophosphate initiative as well as the high priority lead service replacement work, and that portion is ahead of target. And then finally, our advanced metering infrastructure project is in the process of vendor selection, and that's basically going to smart water meters throughout the entire city. And so time of use, being able to see that, communicate with our customers, detect leaks much sooner rather than waiting for the bill to come in at the end. Next slide, please. So I'm going to do a little bit deeper dive on both the Stormwater Integrated Resource Plan as well as the core strategy, because those were the two big non-routine adjustments that came through in the last PBR period. So in the Stormwater Integrated Resource Plan, we talk about it from 5 themes. And so first theme being the slow theme. So we have 31 large dry ponds that were identified through that strategy. All of those have been through the Phase 1 open spaces review that process that the City of Edmonton leads, and so we submit that we're proposing a dry pond in this location. It goes through a number of reviews with city departments and school boards to confirm that that's a potential viable use. Through that, we also have a number of ponds that have been completed construction, and we have 4 ponds currently in various stages of design phase throughout the city. LID locations were installed throughout the city at 23 locations. I've got a photo on the next slide that shows one of the major ones, but just out the window here, you can see one underway right now, which is at 103rd Avenue, is a big LID initiative that's underway. On the move strategy with COVID, we ended up focusing our move on ditches and swales. Didn't require us to get into people's homes, and so we were able to reestablish a number of ditches and swales that had degraded over time and reduce customer complaints considerably from the last snow melt. Through that, we have a new maintenance manual in place with roadways operations, and moving forward, they'll be in much better shape as we go forward. On the secure side, over 1,000 manholes were relined and secured so we don't have excess water getting into the sanitary system. And we have doubled the size of our floodproofing inspection team. And although Daryl mentioned we were under on the residential, we did also 500 multifamily floodproofing inspections. They were just not considered counted because they didn't have the elevator room included in them. And so we're supporting all customers, not just residential, with flood inspections, and so that's why we're proposing the change to that measure. On the Predict side, our SERP dashboard was implemented, and that supports our utility of the future. All our sensors now come into a common view linked with our GIS, and we're able to see in real time what is happening in the system, and we're adding more sensors to that. And then finally, on the respond piece, we've purchased a couple of mobile flood trailers with tiger dams. So if there's a flooding area, we can deploy that. As well as for the City of Edmonton, we completed a flood risk assessment of all 1,300 parcels that the City of Edmonton owns, and have passed that on to their facilities team to look at what capital works they may need to do to floodproof them. Next slide. And again, this is just showing an example of one of our LID projects that happened last year. And so this is in Old Strathcona area. It represents about 0.5 green hectares, and it's a number of tree cells underneath and box planters throughout. Other examples are Imagine Jasper Avenue, where we had almost 5 green hectares installed all along that entire stretch with box planters and tree cells as well. Columbia Avenue is under construction right now. So again, lots of different options and having lots of success in getting that into the system. Next slide. On our corrosion and odor reduction strategy, it has 4 themes. And so the first theme is the prevent theme, which is really dealing with the impacts of the corrosion and rehabbing pipes that have seriously degraded, getting in, making sure they're functional, and trying to get the excess debris that is accumulated in the trunks, which is really what is causing the odors to accumulate as things ferment and do all sorts of nasty stuff in the trunk system. So tied to that, we have the Duggan Tunnel project. That contract was just awarded and construction will start soon, and that will address the major odor concerns in the Steinhauer-Duggan area. We have 7 large trunks that are at various stages of repair and replacement. A key one being we're looking at getting one of the trunks out of the Mill Creek ravine and moving it further to the west. And so that project, the contract bids just came in on that one, and so it will be moving forward. The other big part is we got into the trunk and looked at it. We were able to identify excess debris in multiple trunks. So 2.5 kilometers of excess debris was cleaned out of some trunks, and we're continuing our inspection process. Many of these trunks were built to never get into them. Optimistic engineers in the 50s. But we're getting the access points in and getting in there and getting them cleaned out moving forward. From the optimized piece, that's looking at our pumping patterns. And so making sure sewage, if it's sitting, it stagnates. If we can keep it moving through our pump sizing, optimizing the pumping, that dramatically reduces the odor. So very good progress is being made on that. Addition, the monitors also tied to utility of the future, getting more sensors out into the system. And then on control, drop structure modifications and one-way flaps. And that's about managing how the air is exiting out of the system, making sure it's going in a place that's not as disruptive to the community. So next slide and final slide is just a map to show how successful the CORE program has been since we started in 2018. And so the 2018 is before we started the program. Basically, you can see it's clustered around the trunk system, and the intensity of color is the number of odor complaints we were seeing. And so we're basically working our way from the outwards in, cleaning the pipes, optimizing the pump stations, addressing the issues in there, and we're dramatically shrinking the odors and the intensity of the odor complaints that we're seeing, and continuing to be very successful with this strategy. And with that, I think we are open to questions.
Well, thank you very much. A very comprehensive report. Really appreciate that. And the report is pretty deep as well. It was attached to our materials. So thank you for all of that. I might go to Mr. Beckett just to see if he has any comments on this report or anything just to start us off, and then we'll go to questions from councillors.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I view this kind of report as a learning opportunity. It tells you some things that you can use in the future as you set the next PBR regime. So you look at things like, is the utility consistently underspending on O&M or overspending on capital, and what are the base reasons for that? Because there are incentives in a PBR to under-forecast certain aspects of costs and over-forecast other aspects of costs. So it goes towards forecast credibility. There are some learnings in this particular report. Probably more important will be the learnings you get from the annual reports of the existing PBR and that will inform decisions for the future PBR. But that's really my major comment is treat this as a learning opportunity and think about how you will apply those learnings to future PBR applications.
Great, thank you. So, questions? From committee, first of all? Might be having a clicking in problem. Councillor Stevenson.
Yes, thank you so much for the report and presentation. So much great work happening. It's really, really wonderful. You know, something that we hear on our end is that customer interaction. So great to see the improvements there, particularly the in-city water that's been improving in recent years. But you know, I may have missed something, so I apologize if I did. But the customer service indexes seem to be focused on some of the emergency responses. But just wondering if we capture anywhere just sort of some of that other customer interaction around billing or those types of calls.
Not as part of the PBR metrics itself, and these are standards of performance. They're not designed to drive increasing levels of performance. And the reason behind that is there's additional cost if we drive increased performance. Today, as an example, 25 minutes to get to a main break. Well, if we want 20, we need more trucks, those types of things. And so we assess that as part of our customer engagement prior to each PBR. So we do fairly extensive surveys, we've done focus groups, those types of things, just to ensure our level of service is where people want. And so those are set for the PBR period, and then we change that in the next term. So that's where that comes back to.
Okay, and forgive me as I am learning through this process, but that's a different PBR report than this one?
It's included in our PBR application, and so we hire an external consulting firm to do that for us. And so they set out the parameters with our guidance, and we can certainly provide that report to you, but it was included in terms of our last PBR application.
No, that's great, thank you. Great to know that it's in place there. Maybe just another, and this one is a bit more intangible and a bit more challenging, but I was just thinking about some of the flood mitigation and the sort of slowing down, and I know that's led to some new requirements for infill development, for example, with on-site water management, so having more water catchment on site. Do we have a way of measuring sort of the financial impact or the project viability impact that some of those measures can have? I know some projects have faced a lot of challenges with needing to accommodate those new catchment requirements.
So you mentioned a bit on the slowing down. I'll just say that the slowdown in this report is more reflective of that the SERP, because of the old budget to the old city budget versus the SERP. So that was more of, that's where it's a bit of a little slowdown just as we revalidated all the projects that should move forward. So I'll clarify that.
Oh no, I just meant the
Oh, the SERP slow in the, yeah. So I think what we've been hearing from some of the commercial properties in terms of, as particularly on the infill and them having to maintain a certain amount of water on property, that is actually not new with SERP. That has been city standard for a very, very long time. I think what is different is we're seeing turnover of properties that where if it was originally built in the 1950s, it wasn't a standard at that point. But tied to that, because part of our SERP strategy is to get more of this green infrastructure and storage in place, we are looking at ways that we can help reduce that issue that's in there. And we've had a couple of conversations around that. And certainly if there's something major required, we'll bring that forward in the next PBR. But we might be able to address ahead of that. And so absolutely 100% I'm aware of it. And we are working with a couple of developers right now on how to transition through that. But it's not a new standard due to SERP. It's a new standard since the original parcel was developed.
Of course, no, that makes a lot of sense and tracks just in terms of those incidents that I've heard of. And finally, just wanted to confirm that you are involved with the zoning bylaw renewal team, just in terms of the question of site coverage and what that might look like in the new bylaw.
Yeah, absolutely. And in fact, we're meeting next week. And so one of the feedback that we did get from the various stakeholders is that there's a lot of stakeholder sessions. And so we are actually going to do a joint stakeholder session on the modernization of the standards and the zoning bylaw together and pull all the issues together to do that, because we were kind of flipping between each other. We would do one session and say we need the zoning bylaw group here, and then the zoning bylaw would say, well, we need the modernization team there. So we're going to do one session, and we'll go through the pieces, and we're next week meeting to plan that out.
Amazing. That's so wonderful to hear about that integration, and I think that is the theme of the exciting work that's happening. So thank you so much.
Thank you. Just a quick follow-up. Wasn't the site detention requirement to protect the combined sewer system at its origins?
It's a combination of it. It actually is also on the storm system as well.
Yeah.
Because you get very high erosion if you have very high flows. So if you think of a rainstorm, everything hits at once. What you want to do with that small-scale storage that's required, it's really capturing that first flush of rainwater, and then it's slowly released from the site so you don't cause erosion at the outfalls. So it's a combination of both of that. Where the green infrastructure piece comes in is we do additional storage, and it's seeing, can we tie that together, where if we come in and do the additional storage, can we just scoop up the minimum storage that's required, and who's the funder for that minimum piece that's required in the standard.
Right. Okay. Thank you. Councillor Jens.
Thank you for this, and thank you for the remarks. Mr. Chair, can I ask Mr. Beckett a question at this time? Yeah. Mr. Beckett, I really appreciated your remark around forecast credibility, and I just was wondering if you had commentary on this in terms of how you feel and how you evaluate forecast credibility looking at this report. Do you wanted to elaborate?
Not really. So this is all history. What you're seeing in this report is all history. Nothing you can do or we can do is going to change what has happened here. The key is as I said, to ponder upon what that tells you about future PBR applications. I see nothing in here that suggests that there was anything devious going on within EPCOR. It's just a question of ensuring that future applications are tested with the rigor necessary to ensure that there's no over-forecasting or under-forecasting. The whole purpose of a forecast is that there should be an equal probability that the forecast will be exceeded or undershot. And the forecast is right in the middle of those two possibilities. And that's the key, is to try and find that spot.
Thank you. Appreciate that. Building on Councillor Stevenson's questions, I have received a number of questions and concerns from industry and from constituents around the infill cost sharing program. And I'm not sure, I appreciate that what's mentioned in the report today, and I'm not sure if today's the time to go deep into it, but would it be possible, or could there be a chance at a future date to have a little more of an elaboration here around how we are going to achieve our infill goals and how EPCOR sees their role in some of these pieces? Because whether we're talking about the costing or how this loops into these different pieces, I would appreciate that. So I don't know if I see Mr. Chair with some. I think
EPCOR is prepared to answer that, so that's
okay.
fine.
Yeah, we're actually working very closely with growth management, just as well as working with zoning bylaw. We're reviewing all the 18 high priority nodes and corridors, as well as the district plans, working with ERS on the fire stuff. So yeah, we are actually planning on coming back with all of that.
Oh, wonderful. Do you have a ballpark quarter when that may be?
It's somewhat dependent on, we're coordinating with growth manager, and we're not sure if it comes to this committee or urban planning. And so we'll be working with the urban planning group to confirm what's the best approach to bring that forward. But active work is underway on that right now.
Okay.
Like next spring, summerish, right?
Yeah, most likely, yeah.
Yeah, I'd flag I have a considerable small industry interest in that question. So yes, thank you.
Yeah, I met yesterday with them, so we're good.
Yeah, good.
Mr. Chair, if I could just add, in addition to infill development, one of the things that in a future meeting we want to bring forward to Utility Committee to have a discussion is how we manage and handle greenfield development. we have two kinds of development here in the city. We want to make sure that as a utility, we can support both. We want to make sure that that level of support is in alignment with not only the utility committee, but with the city council and all the plans that the city has. So I think at some point down the road, we're a few years out before we have to start work on the next water PBR as it relates to greenfield development, but that is something that in the future in front of this utility committee, we'd like to have that discussion as we, certainly as we start to gear up to build that application in a few years.
Can I, shifting gears slightly, can I ask about the backwater valve subsidy program, again, for many of the extreme weather concerns out there? I note the pieces here with multifamily and some of the commercial pieces that may be a little tougher to get into. What do we recommend for owners for flood protection then?
So when we inspect a building, whatever, there's a number of different things we look at them. The backwater valve is one aspect related to potential backups through the sanitary system. I'll also look at lot grading, so is the lot sloped towards that it can get in through foundation drains. And we'll also look at, where downspouts are disconnecting. There's a fairly formal inspection program that we go through. On the backwater valve subsidy, we actually, it is available to all types of properties. We did do some research last year on terms of why people weren't necessarily coming and getting their subsidy, but we're working on that. We did do a very detailed report to council last August, to utility committee on this topic, and so we could redirect you towards that information as well and give an update on that. Also, right now, we have an initiative underway with TD Insurance and the Institute of Catastrophic Loss Reduction, where they're looking at setting up some model homes. They've just interviewed, I think, 24 homes in Edmonton. We're arm's length from it, but the idea is that TD would fund the upgrading of the full home, and then the homeowner agrees to have it as a model home for others. And so that initiative's underway right now to further boost uptake of backwater valves, et cetera.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Councillor Tang.
Great, thank you so much, Mr. Chair, and thank you very much for this comprehensive presentation. So those wipes, even if they say they're flushable, they're not flushable, but they are compostable, right? That's for our waste. No. Yeah. Yeah, I think I just have some questions. A lot of it is more for just clarification for myself. I actually had a question about the greenfield development. I think it kind of shows the neighborhoods that we represent, but I was curious, the capital increase on that, but isn't there cost sharing in the developer-driven growth projects?
It actually varies by utility.
Oh.
And so on the water side, there is a cost share. On the drainage side, it is fully funded by the developer.
Right.
And then the increase that you're seeing in there is related to the cost that we have to incur. And so it's if a new area opens up that requires a new transmission main,
okay,
you'll sometimes see from year to year there'll be waves up and down in the cost tied to we open up the area, and then all the small pipes connect to it, and then we open up again. And so that's partially where you would have seen an increase is most likely. I'm not as familiar with what areas, but.
No, that's helpful. I had thought they were fully developer responsibility, so thanks for clarifying. And then on the financial performance on the drainage side, recognizing the 2018 measures were kind of tenuous since there was no PBR at the time, but with that kind of rate of like 5.13, do we expect this kind of return on equity to continue?
No, we don't. But what we did put in the PBR was what we called a ramped ROE, because if we went to the full awarded rate of 995, there'd be a significant customer increase because of that. And so what we're doing is ramping from 5.5 to 995 over the course of 5 years. And that really equates to $63 million out of EPCOR's net income, but we just didn't feel that the customers could accept such a large increase, particularly during COVID. So it will go up, but quite slowly.
Okay, great, thank you. By the way, for the operational performances on the drainage side, so then will the 2021 measures be the new baseline then?
Yeah, the metrics carried over. We didn't make any significant changes to the metrics themselves. Some of the standards changed as part of the new PBR, but that becomes the basis which the performance of the utility is set. Yeah, absolutely.
Great, thank you. And then on the flood mitigation, given that there's a couple projects in my ward, I was curious, do all of those communities have their own task force with community members? And there's, as part of some of those projects, there's some like non-flooding aspects. How do those factor into PBR, or do they?
So first, no, not all of them have task forces. We have a couple of task forces depending on the projects, but for the most part, it's more traditional community engagement, lots of opportunities, and it's not the norm that there's a task force stood up, but sometimes that does happen. In terms of non-flood related amenities tied to the flood mitigation, that is part of each individual site will be slightly different in terms of the consultation process that we go through depending on what the community wants in there. Our focus on SERP is primarily around the flood mitigation, but certainly if we look at the Park Allen Pond, a toboggan hill was added as part of that. We will look at different sports fields components in there, and so it's part of the back and forth. The city is as actively involved in that process as well, and we work as a group with the community league, ourselves, and other stakeholders in terms of what is the configuration of the pond that makes sense for that community.
So like, I'm thinking the living wall. Would that be kind of then, like, that's part of your work, and then would that be factored into?
So the living wall was certainly part of a project and a pond that was started before the transition over to EPCOR and before the SERP strategy. Since it doesn't have a storage component, it wouldn't really be considered part of SERP. It would have to be an addition.
Got it. There. Perfect. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Councillor Paquette.
Oh, thank you, Mr. Chair. Just really quickly, has anyone moved the recommendation?
Not yet, no.
Okay, happy to do that.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, and just actually, these are a little bit tangential questions, but really quickly, because it's something that I've been asked about a lot, and that is the status of both fluoride and orthophosphate.
So fluoride continues to be added as always, so there's no update on fluoride. On orthophosphate, the orthophosphate treatment systems will be finished with construction at the end of this year and activated in early 2023. And then as part of the orthophosphate strategy and the overall plan, we've also targeted about 350 high priority lead service lines. Those were lead services that we felt, after extensive monitoring and water quality sampling, would struggle to meet the new limit of 5 parts per billion even after the addition of orthophosphate. Those 350 high priority service lines will all be replaced this year, by the end of this year. We're on track to complete all of those a bit earlier than originally scheduled, but we're going to get them all done this year. Knock on wood, as long as weather cooperates and we can continue to construct into the fall, they'll all be done this year.
Knock on wood, indeed. Okay. Oh, and the fluoride. Okay, so I remember that there was a suspension of the additive, but that's all over.
Yeah, it was shut down for some maintenance. Now it's back on. Yes.
Okay, great. And otherwise, I don't really have a lot of questions. I take Mr. Beckett's advice to heart, but that will be more of something to look at going forward. So thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Councillor Rutherford.
Yes, thank you so much. And thank you for this. I again echo my colleagues. Great, comprehensive, and informative report. I did just want to zone in on the odor item and the two maps that compared and contrasted 2018 to 2021. And I noticed that I know my office has definitely received complaints, and I'm sure EPCOR is aware of them. So I saw there was a big red dot kind of right in the middle of my ward. And so I wanted to know, I would be remiss to not ask, what was the monitoring and what kind of plan for those other kind of red zones going forward to mitigate that?
Yeah, absolutely. And so we are as indicated, we're moving from the outside in, because it's sort of as we move our way in, we optimize the pumping. That goes next phase. Some of these we have to get into the pipe, and so we've got, I'm sure all of you saw the construction on Saskatchewan Drive and Gateway Boulevard. That was one of those access manholes, trying to get down into that pipe so we can see what's going on and clean it out. And so primarily it's working through these, optimizing the pump stations. In some cases we have to add a one smaller pump because the pumps have been oversized, and so basically the sewage backs up and then it kicks in every 2 days. And so it's just a bit of systematically working through that. And once we get the pipes cleaned out and then go into a regular cleaning program, you won't have that buildup going forward. And so it's a bit of timing to get the access, then clean it and move forward.
Okay, so I think just going back to the other slide again, it talks about like prevent, optimize, monitor, control. So it says core monitoring completed at 300 sites, which I know some of that was within my ward.
Yep.
Within the ward of Melnick. And then that was going to inform program initiatives and interventions. So I'm just trying to get a sense of how has that monitoring informed what's upcoming in that, like where are these other two kind of, I mean, I think it's super impressive that we've reduced across most of the city, but I do see two kind of red zones.
Yep.
Still one in the east and one in the northwest here. And so just kind of what is the queue, what is the timing and staging for those, any information that would be helpful.
I can get more details for you on those specific locations, what we're doing in there, but for certain we've been optimizing the pump optimization at Pump Well 188, which is in the north end, one of those dots, and it just may not be reflected in this figure because this is 2021.
Yeah.
We also did some work in the Big Lake area that trickled further down into the network. And there was substantial trunk line cleaning that was required up there. And one of those trunks had over 1 meter depth of debris in it.
Oh my goodness.
So yeah, substantial debris accumulated in those trunks. And so we're working through it. But I can get you a more detailed review of what we're doing specifically in that location.
No, I think overall, I just was curious because I did see this major progress, but saw that, that's definitely something my office is receiving information on. And I think when we talk about quality of life, which is something I'm hearing more and more is important to residents, having a neighborhood that doesn't smell is high on the list of quality of life. And so just wanted to make sure I was that, but any further information on that specific, but overall, I think the report is really fantastic, very informative, and though I'm not on the committee, I support the motion that's on the table. Thank you.
Thank you. I think that concludes questions of our guests. So thank you very much again for the presentation and for the conversation today. We look forward to some of those other pieces that are coming. And we have a motion on the floor that the report be received for information. So anybody wishing to speak to that? I'll just say that quickly. Councillor Salvador?
Yeah, I'll just briefly, there's so many fascinating details that I could get into, but just want to speak broadly. It looks like things are going very well as far as targets are concerned. EPCOR is achieving competitive value in service delivery, while achieving targets that are above targets rather on return on equity. And I think that's something that doesn't necessarily receive a lot of attention, much like the incredibly vital utilities that EPCOR provides. And I got a firsthand look of that just yesterday at Gold Bar. And I can confirm, I saw the wipes. They indeed cannot be flushed. And I know the process that has to happen in order to resolve that. But I think something that really excites me about utilities is that when things go unnoticed, that means they're being done well. When they aren't running smoothly, however, people take note, so I'm glad we're not in that position. Also, just wanted to add that I'm really pleased to see all the flood-related infrastructure that's being planned and delivered. To me, that's prime climate resilience infrastructure, and really proud that EPCOR is continuing their leadership in that regard. Also exciting to hear about some of the tools that are going to be coming online related to developer coordination and from the work arising there. And yeah, I just want to thank you again for the comprehensive presentation. I like the format of the report. I found it really, really engaging and really interesting. And yeah, thank you for all the great questions from colleagues as well.
Thank you. I was chatting with Ashley yesterday and just remarked that when you tour Gold Bar, you get to see things that you cannot unsee. So everyone should have that opportunity. Thanks very much. Please vote.
We have all the votes.
Please display the vote. That is carried, so information is received. I'll move that we bring forward item 9.1. Please vote.
We have all the votes.
Please display the vote. That's carried. I will move, Councillor Jans, that we go into private, subject to sections 16 and 25 and 27 of the Freedom of Information and Protection of Privacy Act. Please vote.
Apologies, we're having issues with eScribe,
In favor.
with the mouse. We have all the votes.
Please display the vote. That is carried. So we'll take a couple minutes. We're in recess for 2 minutes while we
We are live from City Hall River Valley Room.
Thank you. So we're back in public. Councillor Paquette.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. I move that the August 26, 2022 City Operations Report CO 01409 be received for information, and two, that the August 26, 2022 City Operations Report CO 01409 remain private pursuant to Section 16, disclosure harmful to business interests of a third party, 25, disclosure harmful to the economic and other interests of a public body, and 27, privileged information of the Freedom of Information and Protection of Privacy Act.
Thank you. Anyone speaking to it? Probably not. Please vote.
I might have spoken code, but
We're just waiting on one vote. We have all the votes.
Please display the vote. That is carried unanimously. So thank you very much, everyone, for your presentations and your time today. That takes us now to item 7.3, Business Planning Update.
Mr. Chairperson, we do have a presentation if committee would like to see it. Otherwise, we can go straight to questions, whatever your preference.
Long presentation or?
About 6 or 7 slides, I believe.
Sure, let's do that then.
Okay. Yep. So while we're queuing that up, I'll just introduce Ryan Koss from our business integration section will be delivering the presentation, and Mr. Kajelan will also be available as well for questions following the presentation.
Good morning, members of committee and everyone else here for the discussion today. Waste Services is updating our business planning and budgeting process to align with the corporate process. Today's presentation outlines the current business planning process and the plan changes. The changes will result in improved administrative efficiency while continuing to deliver high-quality business planning and budgeting in alignment with the Waste Services utility fiscal policy. Next slide. Waste Services continues to mature as a utility, and with improved financial management, rates have been stable and consistent for the last 5 years. While working towards gaining business and fiscal maturity, Waste Services has relied on a detailed approach to budgeting and business planning. This includes producing 3 documents every year and an additional 2 documents every 4 years. One of the utility's key documents is the annual rate filing, which is presented to Utility Committee in the fall during budget deliberations. Next slide. Building on our experience maturing the utility, Waste Services is updating its planning and budgeting process to align with the corporate process starting this year. The plan changes are in alignment with the Waste Services utility fiscal policy and will increase administrative efficiency around these functions while continuing to provide Utility Committee the ability to provide effective governance of the utility. Next slide. This slide details the specific changes that will be implemented starting this year. The left side of the table shows the planning and budgeting documents that were completed in 2021. The right side of the table shows the changes for 2022. To clearly show the changes, the documents that will no longer be produced have been struck through. The most notable change is the move from an annual rate filing to a multi-year rate file process. Starting this year, Waste Services will present a 2-year rate filing. The other notable changes relate to business planning that will align with the corporate process. Waste Services will no longer prepare the annual business plan and will work with corporate partners to develop an integrated branch action plan and a 4-year budget plan. Next slide. Multi-year budgeting is not new for waste services. In the annual rate filing, 4-year budgets and associated rates are prepared, and only the first year is approved by council. The expected impacts and key changes of moving to a multi-year rate filing is that waste services will be asking council to approve those future rates. This approach highlights waste services' commitment to strong fiscal management, forecasting, and business planning, and will help ensure rate stability and predictability for our residential customers. This is a shift from our current practice of annual rate filings. The utility will transition to this new approach over the next 4-year cycle. 2-year rate filings will be presented for 2023 to 2024 and 2025 to 2026, and a 4-year rate filing will be presented for 2027 to 2030. The utility recognizes that budget adjustments will continue to occur within the approved period. Adjustments will continue to be presented if required, just as they are this time. The business planning approach will also align to the corporate process and will be done on a 4-year basis. That concludes our presentation. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Beckett, your thoughts on this report?
I appreciate the opportunity that Waste gave me to look at this material in advance of the meeting. And I had asked the question, how good is your second, third, and fourth year forecast? And I would measure that by looking at one of your previous rate applications includes a forecast for a second year, and then the next rate application updates that. How close have they been? Are they accurate enough to give the committee confidence in approving rate applications for greater than 1 year?
Absolutely, and thank you for your comments, Mr. Beckett. The most important thing about what we're proposing is forecast accuracy, ensuring that we have strong business planning in place, as well as budgeting. Up to current date, we've done an annual rate file approach, and so we've had the ability to make adjustments on an annual basis. Going forward, we're going to be sticking to our rates, 2-year rate files for the next 2 years, and then a 4-year process going forward. So you're absolutely right. Forecast accuracy is very important.
Well, I think the question is, how has it been? Historically, how good have the forecasts been?
Mr. Beckett shared with us some of his findings earlier this year, and we have been off a little bit in the past. And of course, that is what we're working towards improving and sticking to our forecasts.
Mr. Beckett, any further comments?
So thank you for agreeing that you've been a little bit off in the past, which is what I thought I had detected when I provided that information. And you've committed that you're working towards improving that, but can you give the committee any comfort that it is going to improve?
So the short answer is yes, we will commit to that, Mr. Beckett. And I think what we're doing is consistent with what the rest of the corporation is trying to do in terms of our ongoing monitoring on everything that is budget for the city, so that we are sticking to what we are charging our rate base as well as our tax levy components in the corporation. So the ongoing monitoring and looking at the accuracy is certainly part of what this would do in terms of going forward.
Councillor Stevenson.
Yeah, thanks for that. Thank you for highlighting how that forecasting work will be improving. Mine is a more procedural thing, and I would look to my colleagues with more experience here, but would it be possible for the 4-year to be offset from the 4-year budget cycle? I'm just thinking in terms of the volume, the quantity of reading that we're doing at the 4-year budget cycle, if this could be off cycle so that we're moving to a 4-year in 2025 or 2029, so that we're not looking at everything all at once. But there might be benefits of looking at it all at once. So any thoughts on that?
So Councillor, I don't want to speak on behalf of Ms. Padbury. She's not here, but certainly, there's probably benefits and trade-offs by altering those cycles. Certainly, from a consistency perspective for the corporation, it allows us to have a better picture of certainty for that 4-year window, knowing that it also does place higher demands on that 4th year as well. But I think it's important that in both processes, whether it be our utility rate filing or a regular budget process, that we are doing the annual check-ins and the updates, and that whether that be in the form of the SOBA or the SCBA or our rate filings, that we do continue that ongoing monitoring and updating.
Yeah, and I think absolutely agree. Those sort of interim touch points are always great. I should have started by saying, yeah, I think the move to 4 years is great. I think that makes a lot of sense. Again, if the forecasting is sort of tightened up and we have greater clarity there. Again, maybe I'm just feeling daunted by the prospect of a 4-year budget and the thought of doing a 4-year rate filing at that same time period. Just a thought.
Yeah, I think I would just add that some of the forecasting that waste undergoes is informed by the forecasting that's occurring in the rest of the tax levy side of the city, such as fleet and facility type activities. So there are some, as Mr. Seabrook mentioned, there are some benefits of aligning it, but there may also be a way to look at it differently as well.
Okay, yeah, just a thought. I certainly take the advice in terms of what makes the most sense for the most integrated planning. Definitely take your recommendation there, but maybe just something to take away and think about further. Thank you.
I just want to pick up on that. Sorry, Councillor Tang. There is the regulated side of waste management, but there's also the unregulated side of waste management. And I think the unregulated side does the 4-year budgeting and, is in alignment with the rest of administration. Is that right?
Correct.
So this would actually align the 2 different sides of the waste management grouping, and that's part of what the advantage you're looking at.
That's
yes.
one of the benefits, yes.
One of the benefits.
Yeah.
So, yeah, okay. Yeah, so the off-cycle would take away from that, yeah. Councillor Tang.
Always learning new things. And so sorry, this might be a really basic question, but when we talk about forecasts, right now we're doing it in-house. And having a more efficient system will provide more certainty with our forecast, and therefore, I guess back to Mr. Beckett's question about, how can we provide comfort, is that we're streamlining, we're making the process more efficient, and that process would provide that comfort in better forecasting. Did I get that understanding right?
Right, great question. And that's what we're aiming to achieve through this process is we rely on the corporate experts, and we're working closely with our finance group, the economist's office, on making sure that we have alignment on those forecast pieces. And of course, looking through our current contracts and the external factors like inflation and labor rates and those sorts of things.
And Councillor, just to add, in terms of where we have come along the way in terms of our rates and our forecasting, so if we look prior to 2015, and I'm trying to dig back my memory bank, but over about a 6-year period, I think our rates ranged anywhere from 3 to 8% increases. Over the last 4-year cycle, we had projected a 2.6% rate adjustment on an annual basis. And actually, in particular, in the last 2 years, we were able to bring that down to 0 to align with the corporation as well as the impacts from the pandemic. So we have been much better than we were in the previous cycles. But certainly, this will help us get better.
Okay, no, that's helpful. Thank you. And I was going to ask if, just in terms of stabilizing those rates, if there were other consideration like inflation and the current economic conditions that contribute to that. But I think you did answer the question, so thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions? If not, then I will move the recommendation in the report. Oh, sorry, Councillor Paquette, go ahead.
Sorry, just a little bit late. After you made the invitation, then I realized maybe I had one question. So I guess to Mr. Beckett's point about accuracy, is that, I mean, that'll be the 2-year, then 4-year. So if this passes, which I'm guessing it might, not to presuppose committee, but after the first 2-year, we'll have a better idea. At that point, should we assess rather than going full bore into the 2-year, 4-year?
Councillor,
Because if we don't have it right, I mean, we should probably take a pause and take a look at that.
I think you raise a good point, and we we do constantly on an annual basis monitor all of our projections versus our expenditures. So I think that would be part of the work we would do, and certainly at the 2-year point, there would be the opportunity should committee see that we need to go back to an annual. I would think that would be a potential. But I would say that what we would be better off doing is identifying if we were faltering, what did we falter on and how do we correct that so that we can bring that certainty to the 4-year proposed cycle eventually.
Right, okay. And so while we do the 2-year, maybe in the first 2 years, should we get some sort of interim report to see how we're doing, like midstream?
I think that would be a good suggestion, and I think we can certainly accommodate that and report back.
Okay. Would we need a motion for that, or is that something that will just happen?
I think we can do that as part of our regular reporting back that we'll still do.
Okay. All right. It's not that I'm opposed, it's just I actually share Mr. Beckett's concerns about multi-year forecasts in a very rapidly changing world. But I'm interested to see where it goes. All right, thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Pickett. Actually, so I wonder about a motion, actually, Mr. Sebrick, that we go to a 2-year rate filing for 23-24 and bring an interim report maybe halfway through 24 to consider future multi-year rate filings.
Mr. Chairperson, I think that would probably add some clarity and make sure that it happens, and would also give some comfort to Utility Committee and Utility Advisor that this will be looked at with scrutiny. So
yeah. All right, so I'll make that motion then, that I'm just trying to get the right party. I'm not sure if it's administration or waste management. Waste Services. So I'll move that Waste Services proceed with a 2-year rate filing for the years 2023 and 2024 as a first point, and as a second point, bring an interim report in Q3 of 2024. Essentially an update report in Q3 of 2024 regarding accuracy of forecasts within that rate filing.
If I may, we might actually want it a bit earlier than that. We do an annual report, which
Sorry,
would provide...
just a sec. I'm not sure who's talking.
Oh, sorry. It's Keith Knobloch, the Director of Finance for Waste.
Oh, all right. So Q2 then, Mr.?
Yeah, we do an annual update as part of the financial statements, so we could share how we've done on the rate filing at that time. We also typically would have to do an SCBA adjustment in the fall of 2023 for any changes in the capital profiles. So those would be two opportunities where we could report back to committee in terms of how the rate filing was proceeding in terms of the accuracy of the forecasts.
Sure. Okay. That's agreeable to me. It provides some alignment on the financial work, so thank you for that. Be Q4 2023, which allows financial services to figure out what a report to attach to, essentially. Yeah.
I have put the proposed motion into the chat.
Okay. Well, I guess, so that motion is fine, Madam Clerk, first of all, so you can put that up on the board. That's, the only question I have is the date of the interim report. So I'm going to go back to, I'm sorry, to Keith. I lost your last name, sir, but
No worries.
there's a bit of apprehension that the end of 2023 might be a little bit early to be able to evaluate the effectiveness of the forecasting efforts. So I'm inclined to go to Q1 or Q2 of 2024, which would align with the spring adjustments potentially.
Either would be fine. We do routine reporting for Q3 and for the following year as part of our year-end processes. So we would have information available in Q4 of 2023, but you're right, it would still have a element of it not being fully actuals. It would be updated projections in Q3 or Q4 of 2023.
Right. So I'm going to, sorry, Madam Clerk, I'm going to move that to Q2 of 2024 because then that comes back with the consolidated financial statements, the spring adjustments, that kind of a thing. Yeah. Okay. Thank you. Questions on the motion? Further questions on the motion? Speaking to it? Just very briefly, with thanks to Mr. Beckett and Councillor Paquette, I think that this is the prudent approach. So appreciate that. Please vote.
We have all the votes.
Please display the vote. That is carried. That completes public reports. Are there any notices of motion or motions without customary notice? Seeing none, we are adjourned. Have a great weekend, everyone.